on society. But also, you know, there are those who know there's a problem with classes. I was just talking to someone earlier, you know, which are growing to the size of 70 in a class. And they say, oh, yes, and we must, of course, we believe in individualization. So we differentiate. And we have one teacher and a few teaching assistants. And somehow you try and manage a class of kids who are not interested in the slightest. We are actually, with this, the homeschool educational freedom perspective, we are offering solutions. And I would say it's quite an exciting time, even though, you know, our governments are coming and going like the weather, you know, on a normal British day. You don't know whether it's raining or it's sunshine, you know, when you get up in the morning. We don't know whether it's going to be Boris or Liz Truss or whoever. And when one prime minister goes out, all of their cabinet, you know, are up for grabs. And it is difficult, but it's also a great opportunity. I think I've probably, you know, given a good warm-up act for the keynote speaker who's smiling and nodding. But Alison, you have great experience. But from my perspective, faith, you have to have a real belief in what you're standing for, and then you will have the resilience to fight through. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Before Tim goes, is there a quick question, maybe two, if we have time? Anybody have a question they want to pose to Tim? Nobody else? Okay, Sylvia.
Just one or two notes about, with your experience, how do you deal with the faction of your governmental reality that don't look to religious aspects as a good thing to... How do you deal with that to defend the homeschool cause?
I'll try and answer that. We have the advantage that we have a constitution which is based on faith, based on actually quite a tolerant, inclusive basis. You know, the Anglican Church, they say, is a broad church because it's literally a whole spectrum, and that's because it's tolerant. So you can talk about inclusion. You can talk about these buzzwords, as it were, that everyone can relate to. And you know, my fallback position is, look, we are a minority community. You know, give us a chance to at least express our faith and our values. I think that, again, it's personal. I think lobbying is generally personal. And if you're meeting people, you're telling your personal story. I went to 5 schools, one twice, failed. When I say failed, I failed behaviorally at 3 of them. They happened to be state schools. They were these big factory type schools where you're a cohort and you're pushed through from one year to the next. So I would basically sign up. You know, there was a register every morning you have to attend. And I just found a position in the class where, you know, after the register was taken, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, I was out of the window and I was out for the rest of the day. And so I was not a model student, but I do connect it also to the fact that for me, I didn't take seriously, you know, there was, even in the 1970s, indoctrination. And I would say that's grown. And kids can see it a mile off. And by the way, religiously as well. They can see it. That's what was said by Peter. You know, the history of education was, you must obey. Well, not every kid's going to fit in with that model, are they? But I was very blessed because I ended up at a Christian boarding school. That was the last resort. My dad sent me up there, but it was like a family. So it came back to a family. It came back to mutual respect, accountability that you get within a family. And, you know, families start with parents, but you're not a family until you've got children. And, you know, schools can be a family if they're small classes, relationship with the teachers. The school that I went to happened to be pioneering in special education needs for those who are dyslexic, who couldn't fit into the main school system. And it's pioneering because it started in the 1960s. Now, that when no one was talking about dyslexia as a gift, is what we say at our school now. And I was 28 years as a governor of my school and 2 years as the chair of governors. That is something that, again, is I don't want to sound too cynical, but a connection with the Jewish community and the rights of minority communities is one box to tick. But special educational needs, a disability that you're catering for and that you understand and that you know that a dyslexic child will do well with a one-to-one. And again, it fits in with my worldview that every individual is precious because they're created in God's image. You throw all that in, and then would you like another cup of tea? You know, you're building a relationship that's saying who you are and bridging potential chasms.
Thank you, Tim. All right.
Is that enough? As Mike said, I sometimes talk too much.
All right. Thank you, Tim. So we'll let you get going.
Thank you so much.
See you again.
The tunnel.
All right.
So sorry to you, Alison.
So our next speaker just stepped out. Actually, Juliet, I'll turn to you next. How about that? Alison, sorry. Okay. Alison Sauer is coming to us from England, and I think we've got another microphone here, so why don't we...
I just want my thing up.
Okay, so they have it, do they?
Yeah, they have it. I believe
So yeah, if we can get the first screen up, that would be great.
Is this working?
All right, there we go.
Oh, right. And that's mid-forward button, is it? Okay, there we go. Right, hi, I'm Alison Sauer. A little bit about me. I started to campaign to change policy in the UK, where I'm from, in 1997. And I've worked in women's health, maternity, and alternative education, including home education. And my work in home education and alternative education isn't limited to the UK, it's also in Europe and beyond. So, for example, currently I have 2 projects, one in Cyprus and one in Jamaica. Now then, I'm going to kind of go slightly off-piece because I think there's some background that we haven't covered. And other people have spoken a lot about creating those relationships and that. So I'm going to step back just one step here. Okay. Oh, it worked. Okay. So I'm going to talk about where policies come from to start with, okay? And if we have time later on, I'll get on with that. Okay, so it really helps to understand where a policy comes from. How do these policies come into the minds of people? We don't want to get as far as the French have done and have a law put in, and then we go, oh, gosh, I mean, I know they were working anyway, but, you know, if we can manage to interject before that point, then that's great. So, policies begin with somebody, in education this is, in the UK, I can tell you for the last 20 years, every single policy has begun with one person seizing the opportunity to create the perception of a problem, which is not based on evidence. Okay, that's pretty radical, yeah? Pretty radical. But that is what happens. So these policies and these problems that are put out there in the press, they usually involve prejudice. They come from a minister, a government department. They might even come from somebody in a scrutiny committee. All governments have scrutiny committees. Or a children's commissioner. We've had a series of children's commissioners in England that I can only say must have come from the devil. Sorry, not sorry. And they come up with things like, we don't know what we don't know. I'm sounding like Donald Rumsfeld here, but we don't know what we... Does anybody remember that Matrix? So we don't know what we don't know in one corner, and you know, what we know that we know. A friend of mine actually said to me when I was writing this, he said, but Donald's answer to everything was just to bomb the hell out of it and then pick up the pieces. That might be true, it might not be, I don't know. Anyway, they say say things like, something needs to be done about, yeah? So, and they use the press and the agenda. So I've got a really, really, really great example. Here we go. Is anybody familiar with this particular story? So in 2017, Neil Basu, who was a Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Metropolitan Police, that's the police for London and the area, he said, segregated, isolated communities, unregulated education and homeschooling are a breeding ground for extremists and future terrorists. Was that based on evidence? Did he eventually stop saying it because we got to him? Yes, he did. But that created an atmosphere. That created an atmosphere of fear. Fear of what was going on within families, behind closed doors, that wasn't being looked at by professionals, and something needed to be done about it, and it needed to be regulated. So when you've created this fake fear, or this, whatever it is, this doesn't work very well. There we go. Okay, then you have to go about creating some evidence to back up your fake thing, okay? So that evidence can be, it can come from all sorts of things. So you're looking at words like propaganda, deception, distortion, fabrication, inaccuracy, misrepresentation, rumour, rhetoric, all of the words. Get the thesaurus out, you'll find them all. And these ideas then become set. And it makes it harder to separate opinions and biases from fact. So the press accepts the concept. They accept that something needs to be done about whatever it is. And it becomes a fact in the thoughts and minds of the public. And by the time you've got to that stage, you're on an uphill struggle to try and get rid of it. And this is where these laws come from. They come from these biases, etc. So the policy becomes based on evidence making, ignores the actual evidence, and then you get classics like this. In the autumn of 2020, fabulous organisation, slight amount of sarcasm, called the Local Government Association in Great Britain, brought out a report called Children Missing Education. Now, there are two lies in this very paragraph itself. Two. I'll start with the bottom one, the last one. They talk about those missing out on a formal full-time education. The law in England does not require a formal full-time education. So they are creating a problem where there isn't one. Because we don't have a formal full-time education as a requirement, we have a suitable education as a requirement. Those are the words. What they then did was this, they assumed, and there is the word assumed here, this is how brazen they are about doing this stuff. They have assumed that 75% of new-to-home educating families since 2014-15 are not providing what they deem a suitable education to be. So all of a sudden, we've got this evidence making, which adds fuel to the fire of something must be done about. Okay. I need an assistant. There we go. Right. So then what they do is they start branding the policy. So they brand the policy with words like modern and progressive. And guess what that does to everybody else? It others them. If you other the people, you create disdain, you create suspicion, you create fear. Okay. So all the outline systems become othered. There's no thought about what progressive leads to. I want you to do some homework after you leave here. Every time you hear a politician come up with the words modern and progressive, imagine the trajectory of where that progressive goes. Where's it going? Because I'll tell you, they haven't thought about it because they don't look past the next election. Okay? So it could lead to a utopian future. It could lead to a dystopian future. but they won't have thought about it. And the problem is, once you get momentum into a policy, into a trajectory, it's very hard to put the brakes on it. Okay. So when I was thinking about this last week, I started comparing it to colonisation. Okay? The Brits have a fantastic history of colonisation. We were really good at it. Sorry, everybody, including America. It's all right, they can't spell now. They kept putting a Z in my charity name. I had an argument with a spell checker about 4 times. Yes, so with colonisation, the treatment of indigenous cultures was to other them. It was to say, we're modern and progressive. You are the history. You need to be got rid of, or you need to be changed, or you need to be assimilated. It's like the Borg, isn't it? Okay, so and what ends up is a one-size-fits-all policy. We always end up with one-size-fits-all policies. Now, in 2020, in the autumn of 2020, our lovely Education Committee in the House of Commons decided that they were going to have an inquiry into home education. And one of the responses to this inquiry was from Humanists UK. Now, you might think Humanists UK would be a humane organisation. Oh, no. Not at all. They want the eradication of religion. They want parents not to be able to teach their own values to children. They want a common set of values. They want a homogenisation of society. They want children not to be allowed to practice religion until they are adults and can decide for themselves. There's all sorts of fairly nasty stuff in there. And at the bottom of this is part of their submission. And it says, only then will we be able to ensure that every child in England receives the broad and balanced education to which they are entitled. That's not in the law, by the way, so there's another lie in there. In a safe environment. What does that say? If you're saying we need to make sure people are in a safe environment, you're saying currently they aren't. Yeah? So you can see how this is chipping away people's minds and thoughts and hearts. Okay. So what ends up happening is we end up with people challenging, with people challenging what the policymakers are saying. So when the naysayers, the people who don't agree, reach 1%, the policymakers become a little bit agitated. Oh gosh, 1 in 100 people don't like what we're doing. That's pretty dangerous. However, worse than that, if you get 3.5% of a population involved in non-violent protest, you win the argument every time. And that has been very, very, very well documented by an academic called Erika at Harvard. And she has got a massive library of civil resistance movements, etc. And every single one, 3.5% is a magic number. You get 3.5% of a population on your side, you win the argument. Okay? Now, I don't think that the reaction of the politicians when you say your policy is a load of rubbish, go change it, I don't think them defending it is something that they do consciously. I actually think it's a human condition. It's a psychological and sociological phenomenon, and it's about protecting your own beliefs. Okay? And it's part of what we now call the cancel culture. Anybody heard of that? This is where cancel culture comes from. You start to question people's beliefs. They start going, you're not speaking the truth. And they scrub you out. Okay. Right. So, the next thing, there's 2 more stages that happen. Let me have a look. Let me see if I can go back to that little thing. There we go. So there's 2 more stages that happen. We've got the homogenization through policy, which is where they bring in things like minimum standards. What happens when you bring in minimum standards to anything? Anybody? Anybody? You only go to the minimum. You drag everybody down with you. Yes. Try and find an academic paper on that. It's very difficult, I can tell you. Yeah, this reduces breadth and diversity by applying minimum standards. And it follows from the post-war golden age of capitalism. So all the international cooperation, the formation of the United Nations, even second wave feminism helped to bring about this tendency to homogenize policy and to homogenize process. Okay. And then we end up with these minimum standards in the policy dominating the narrative, which then feeds back in to the belief, the mistaken belief, that there was a problem in the beginning to tackle. So that's the first part. I can go on and do a little bit of the second part if you want. There's a couple of bits that I think Tim was...
You've got 5 more minutes.
I've got 5 more minutes. That's okay. All right, then. So let's see. Come on. I don't know where it's supposed to go to, actually. So how to influence policy. Okay, so very quickly, do your groundwork, all right? Before there's even a policy, you know you are a minority. If you know you are a minority, you need to understand your minority and understand your community. You have to look at their needs, their weaknesses, their strength, any trends, and do surveys and research so that you have a body of evidence so that when you are attacked, which you inevitably will be because you're a minority, you have some evidence. Then you need to build relationships. Tim was talking about building relationships. I have an exceptional relationship with my MP. I also have brilliant relationships with all kinds of people, from the clerk of the House of Commons to peers in the House of Lords. And you just build those by being a bit cheeky and introducing yourself and telling stories. If you tell stories to a politician, he was talking about telling stories about yourself. You don't necessarily have to always tell stories about yourself. You have to let them know who you are, but you have to personalize the narrative. You have to bring humans into it. You have to say, this is a terrible thing, and then you say, because it will do this to my friend Jill. Yeah? Or it has already done this to my friend Jill, and look how she suffered. Okay. Always, he talked about deference. Check always how to address people. The first time you address somebody, when you're being a bit cheeky and introducing yourself, do it formally. If they then come back with their first name or something else, some other way of addressing them, then you've got permission to be informal. Face-to-face meetings are better than Zoom meetings, but do both. And then, here's a classic. Ask questions that then have to be asked in Parliament. So if you're talking to a parliamentarian, particularly if they're your own representative, if you're very clever, you will write to them and you will ask them to ask a question that they then have to constitutionally go and ask to a minister or in the House. Okay? So if you want something on the agenda, give them a question. Okay. And be really brief in correspondence. I spoke to a Lord and an MP yesterday. No, 2 MPs yesterday. I was texting at the back there. All of the responses from them were 2 words. They always are. You know, they don't have time. They're not being rude. Well, 2 words and an emoji in one case, but let's not go there. Okay. So, when a policy is proposed, or a perceived problem brought before the public, figure out why it's come about. Do your digging. You know, why has that Metropolitan Police officer come up with that? Where's that come from? Oh, maybe we can tackle where it's come from and actually give him some facts, or put something in the press that undermines what he says and says what the real problem is. Okay, look, blah, 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 blah. Look at the relevant history here's the classic. So, they will always tell you they've done research. 99 times out of 100, they've done no such thing. What often happens is they're relying on something we call anecdata. I love that phrase. So that's anecdotal evidence. So what happened recently with... Actually, I've got a slide for this. That's how safe schools are. That's nasty, that. Anybody see that? We've got a horrible, dirty history of strip searching black children in London schools for drugs. There were 600 in 2 years, and half of them were black. Strip searching without adequate adults there. Come on. Right, so here's a classic. There was a consultation. It was about, should we introduce a register, a compulsory register for children who are not in school? Now, in England, we don't currently have a register, and we're very against it because we think it's the thin end of the wedge and it will lead to more things. Well, we know it will lead to more things. So these are from the raw figures. This is a graph I have done. From the raw figures of responses, 73% of people said no, and 27% of people said yes. But that's not how the government portrayed the figures. Come on. This is how the government portrayed the figures. So they separated everybody into categories. And you can see that they think the local authorities, the local government, are more important than the rest of us. And the schools and teachers are the next most important, and the third sector organisations. And from this, you get the impression that it's about 50-50, don't you? Well, if you do a proper graph, and I did maths at university, you get that. Somewhat different. So these are the things to look out for when you're dealing with policies. When you're dealing with people coming up with policies, do your digging. Find somebody who knows how stats work. Find somebody who can take the figures that they're offering as their evidence and rehash them. I'm going to stop now because there's more I could say, but I think they've got enough. Has anybody got any questions?
Well, actually, let's hold the questions until after Sylvia's presentation, and we'll come back. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Sylvia's next, and everybody's met Sylvia at this point, chair of our GHEX European Committee, and also a real leader in the Portuguese homeschool movement. And she's also spent time talking with her members of parliament. So let's hear about that. Thank you, Sylvia.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And give me just one more time to speak a little bit more about some things. When I was preparing this, I was thinking that I don't know if I have anything to teach you. I only have my experience. And I realized that when I began to do this, I was not aware of the importance of what I was doing. I only realized that maybe 3 or 4 years later, when in a moment where I stopped and I realized, oh, okay, this is huge, this is important. I have contacts, I have things, this will be useful. So don't look at this as a lecture about something. Look at this as thoughts, ideas, things that I want to share, things that if I knew that 7 years ago when I began to do this, maybe today I would be even more related with more politicians. So, yes, let me present you some ideas. We are to deal, okay, so let's see how can we begin to build some relationships, some connections, some ideas to have some preparation for when a new proposal of regulation or something occurs. So how can we do that? So let me invite you to look at this from a good perspective, because yes, I see that when, well, I will talk about my reality. When in Portugal, we discovered that the government was preparing a new regulation, the first feeling was fear. And all homeschoolers, my community, all people that I am in contact with, we went crazy. We thought, okay, what is coming? Because, you know, our legislation talk about homeschooling since 1948. It's amazing, in my opinion. So we have all of these years having a mention in our law about the freedom to do homeschooling. But only 4 years ago, our government decided, okay, there are no good regulation here, let's regulate. And first feeling, fear. So, but then, as my colleagues already said, let's go ahead with, and let's fight. So just some thoughts, okay? First of all, know the story of homeschooling in your country regarding the political and regulatory aspects that have been happening. Knowing the tendencies, the curves, what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is hopeful, it's helpful, sorry, to me to prepare how can I deal with a strategy, how can I build a strategy, okay, when I want to speak with some politicians. Giving some informations like, did you know that we have this in our law since 1948? It can be good to say that for some parties. It can be awful. Why? Because we were in a dictator at the time. So you know what I mean? What I mean is, think about what you will say, but get well informed. Follow the country's politician situation. Sometimes we think, we don't need to know anything else than what is happening about education or homeschooling. It's not my opinion. I think it's very useful for us all to be very aware what is happening, what is the tendencies, what are they saying about one thing and other thing, what are the party that is on the government saying, what are the other parties saying about different things. So we are building a strategy. Then, be a founder, if not already, or organize an association. Going there, in my opinion, I'm just giving my opinions, it's not a study. That's going there, talking with a party, a deputy, to the Minister of with the Minister of Education. It's much better to go there as an association, or even better, a non-governmental organization. One of the questions that most politicians ask me is, how many people do you represent? If I say, oh, I represent 5 people, oh, they don't give me more time. But if I say, in my country with 10 million people, if I say, okay, I have 800 members in my association, wow, okay, yes, we are a minority, but it's a number. Because they have 700 families registered in the system. So if we have 800 members in our association, that means a lot for them, because they know that we know more about homeschooling than them. They know that. And in the first moments, in the first contacts, the first questions were trying to get information from me. You know, things like, oh, do you know that community that is living in some place, they are not doing the registrations or whatever. And I always said, well, my organization is not, the mission of my organization is not telling you about what is happening or not. So we only represent people that want to defend the cause. But again, prepare what you are saying, because if you are already in the conversation and you are not prepared to answer quickly these things, and this is information for them, not answering or without it's information. So this is just an illustration of the movement for freedom in education. And some members of the old team. This is not no more some members are the same, some are different, but it's so nice to see that there are faces. Another thing is, we don't go there to have meetings alone. One thing is to have a social connection, and I do that every time if possible. But when we go to an organized meeting that we ask for, or the parties ask us for, we go 2 or 3 persons, okay? No, I'm sorry, I skipped something. How can I, okay. Yes, very important. Look for at least one lawyer, but don't be stuck if you don't find one. And for me, it's very important. Why? Because they have knowledge about laws, and they have their own language that I don't have. Okay, so I know what I want, but then I ask José Ramalho, the lawyer that is over there, okay, now I have to transform this in a document that is shown with very with professionalism. We are not amateurs, so please help us with that more. Okay, so know your country's laws. Okay, if you go there to a meeting and you are arguing in favor of something, and you don't know that in another different law there are a reference about something, it's not good. But you don't have to say to know everything. Okay, but another thing that it's very useful is know how is the procedures of publishing new laws in your country, because it's different from us. And there are moments, for example, in Portugal, when a new law is proposed, we have some days to send documents. It's called the public consultation. So we can do that during that moment. And we can do more. I'm just giving you an example. And as said, use research. I will no longer go through that because already has been said here, but it's very important. One thing is our opinion. Another thing is showing numbers, showing studies. Because if we are dealing with our opinion, we can transform that little few moments in an argue, in a friendly argue, that it leaves nothing. So research are very important. Now, very important to me, use every opportunity to get contacts. I'm always with one of these in my pocket and one of these. What is this? It's my it's business card. Why? Because imagine once I was in an event of a friend that was he was publishing a new book. I was not there for political reasons at all, but suddenly I watched, and at my side was our last Secretary of State of Education, that now is the minister. And I thought, okay, so I will get this opportunity. And having one this is so easy to say, oh, I would like to talk with you again. Please get in contact with me. And in such a hurry, we decide to have a meeting. So it was very, very useful. Okay, this is just an example, okay? This is one of my kids here, the one with the green t-shirt, giving an offer to the mayor of my city. We decided to do this in an initiative for schools. So these are not homeschoolers. These are kids from school, and my kids as homeschoolers went there. Why? Because I want politicians to see us, to see that we exist, that we are there. And every time they see our face, I have this feeling that, okay, you know that I'm here, so let's continue. Remember that we are here trying to fight for something. Always remember that we are all people. So politicians are people like us. Sometimes well, I don't know about you, but I have this idea, okay, I will go talk with the Minister of Education. No. He's a person like me. So we have different roles, of course. So for me, it's very important to keep this in my mind. More. Okay, so in some cases, yes, we can find this sentence, this connection, and we go along with more conversation and go. And we take that opportunity to get the connection. But in other cases, I feel that silence is the best option. So I'm always, in my mind, I'm always very focused. I'm very natural. We will see that, okay? I'm not inviting any drama here, okay? But being aware of what to say in what moment and being aware of what not to say, because, okay, this is not the moment to say what I want to say. In my opinion is very useful. Okay, I already said that. Prepare your communication and your language. Why? Because sometimes we are using the same words with different meanings. I realized that very quickly 7 years ago. Because, for example, if I was talking about education communities for homeschoolers, they were talking about education communities inside schools. And we were all happy. Yes, we are agreeing. No, we weren't. We were talking about different things. So study the language, the vocabulary that are being used in our parliaments, in our parties, because words can be very tricky when we are defending our cause. Okay. Of course, another thing for me very important, do some partnerships with associations, other ONGs. Don't stick only with homeschool associations. One of the greatest partnerships that we did was with the biggest association, the National Association of Parents at School, the Confederation of Parents, etc., etc. And we had the opportunity to have them with us, and when they go to talk with the Secretary of State of Education, so they also know that we exist, that we are also parents, that we are together on the defense of the rights of education. We don't have to agree on everything, of course, but we are connected. So this is very helpful to make more connections with more politicians, because we are on the lobby. Is that it? And it's have been very, very, very great, these connections. So some illustration of that. Lots of time, that is me here. I go to congresses and simple meetings at schools, because I want to talk about homeschoolings also at schools, because people have to know what we are doing, and sometimes the politicians are there, are not in our environment, are at schools, in also other events. Okay, by the way, at the lunchtime, I was talking about a great school director in Portugal that don't follow any rule during 15 years in a public school. That's the person here in the middle. And this one is another Portuguese person that is a kind of our small Peter Gray, you know, because he's always defending the freedom for kids, that kids have to play more, etc., etc. Okay, please help me with the time, because I tend to, okay, thank you. Again, don't forget that we tend to be a minority in each of our countries. Just a curiosity. Okay, so don't expect to get the same attention of other issues, but we can use things from our reality that are bigger, like special necessities, or, for example, the importance of defending human rights regarding to access to resources or things like that. We had a situation where books are manuals from schools are given for free. And families that wanted handbooks for those kids, for their kids, were not accessing for kids. Just an example for the books. But in Portugal, we need to have our kids enrolled at schools. So we said to some parents, go there and ask for your book if you want. Most of the families don't want the books, but that's all right. So we begin to get together in this situation that is not about a minority. It is about a minority, but with more people. Another example, more huge example, is there are now a movement in Portugal trying to change the access to university with different
different exams, different ways of assessment. So we are together on this with some organizations that are not about homeschools. Why this is important, in my opinion, with making the connection with the politicians? Because politicians will see us there, and we are always giving our interests to be known in different environments. I think I'm almost at the end. Okay. So be creative in the way you present the benefits of homeschool to your country. For example, once in a meeting with one of the parties of Portugal, I explained that there are lots of homeschool communities on small villages that are completely in risk of desertification. And now new families are going to there. And the party is very interested on this and began to accept homeschool idea just because of this first connection. Just an example. Find out other examples from your reality. Okay, go to congresses. I already talked about this. Go to congresses, to meetings, to any place that you can find that there are some politician. And if there are not so politician there, probably there are someone that meets a politician. So we can find a way to get to what we want. And on the contrary, invite deputies, advisors, professionals for your events, but only if you think it's safe. Because sometimes they don't understand what we do. Another example is, I have some politicians that don't understand. Once I had a meeting with a politician, very, very receptive to the idea of accepting homeschooling, but kids being without shoes in the garden, I don't like that idea. So maybe it's a good idea, but parents must be more aware. So be aware of this. Yes, invite them, but first meet them and be sure that it would be a good experience to defend the cause. Okay, so this is events. Florida there with Mike Donnelly. And so, to end, I believe that truth is contagious. So that's it. Only be yourself. I never lie. I never invent different things. I'm always myself when I'm in a meeting or in an event. I'm just myself with attention, being focused, okay, on what I want from that conversation, from that connection. So relationships being made one-to-one are very profitable because deputies begin to know you, to get along with you, we become friends from some of them. So it's wonderful to do that because it's useful later. And I will go on just a little bit. Okay, so as I said, when the risk of some regulatory change appears, the attention to the defense of homeschool increases. Ask for urgent meetings. If we already know, if we already have the connections, if we already know the persons, when an urgent meeting is necessary, it's easier. Because if we ask for a first meeting with a politician and they don't know who we are, and if they don't know our organization and realize that our organization has some impact, they don't give us time because they don't have time for small things. But if they already understood, a good thing was when, I have to give this example, sorry. When in 2019, our first regulation was published, we put the case in court. And last year, in 2021, when a debate in our parliament was made for the first time, because in the first time they did things in a different way. I don't want to bother you with details, but the truth is, the first speech in the parliament, in the moment that the homeschool regulation of Portugal the debate was beginning, our Secretary of State of Education began to say, we are here because Movement for Freedom and Education and the other association that we have there put a process in court, so we have to do this again. Okay? So it was wonderful to realize that, okay, we didn't properly win, but we provoke some movement, some important movement. They know that we exist already. They know that we have power, even though we are a minority, okay? And I'm sorry, I think I'm handing. Oh. Okay. Most importantly, always be truthful, focus your attention, and on the importance of the cause above else. It's not about me, it's about what I'm representing when I'm there. Okay, every time we act in defense of homeschooling, our way of speaking, our presentation, our security, without fear, and serenity will be the most important to show that what we defend is important and natural. So we are not crazy people defending some crazy ideas. Every jest of ours can be a good witness to the normality of what we stand for. So, just ending. Now it's the end, sorry. We organized our association based on these 4 ideas to have a good structure to advocate and to defend this. Research, advocacy, communication, and training. Training, why? Because if we are well trained, we can do all of this in a more natural way. Now, the importance of the team. Have a good team, people, friends that can support us in difficult moments. Yes, this is the thing that is a problem for us all. There will be expenses involved. Not too many, but yes, I have to travel. I have to go some places. I have to pay maybe a dinner or 2. I don't know, but expenses are involved. So think about that. But most of all, take good care of you. Sometimes it's too much. So be aware of your limits. Are you prepared for emotional exhaustion? So be focused on you also, on what you believe, on your friends. Find ways to be nurtured. I don't want, well, okay. And restore yourself. Surround yourself with good friends, first, mainly family, the Movement for Freedom and Education, my homeschool community. Remember that we all are together here. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sylvia. Well, we're going to go to some questions, so maybe Alison can come up, and Sylvia, don't go away. But before we take any questions, I want to make a little bit of an announcement. Mike doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I think it's okay. So Mike and myself and some of our other team at GHEX have been working on what we're calling a white paper. So this is a written document that Sylvia and Alison and any of you can take with you and use when you're going to lobby a politician, okay? So it includes information like, well, what's homeschooling all about, the research, some of the basic facts that academic research has discovered, maybe a little bit about the money it saves government, and some other important information that you can use. Now, this will be available within the next few months, I believe. It's being edited at the moment. It's a process, so it does take a little bit of time. We want it to be a kind of an evergreen document, meaning that it doesn't go stale quickly, something that you can use for years to come. Now, there's no requirement that you use this document alone or that you even use it. But if you choose to use it, you may find that you have information that's specific to your own nation that you can add to it. We wouldn't insist that you just use this document alone, but it's a guide. It's something that you can use as a resource, and you don't have to put the time into creating this. We're doing it for you. It'll be available in English initially, and we'll start to translate it into other languages as well. And if we and certainly all the major languages. And as we get requests for languages that are maybe less common, we'll certainly try to translate it into those languages. So eventually, everybody has something they can use as a tool. So anyway, just to let you know that's coming. And now we'll go to some questions. So, the back. Yes, thank you. And you've got a mic.
We have one.
Okay.
Hello. For Alison, one question, because interests me to me as a practical manager of the questions of homeschooling. You talk that you have 3.5%, you'll get your argument. My question is, this winning is about that the press look for you, or is about the politician respects this number? Does the press have some influence also? Or what you need for get to the press to get more influence?
Okay, so the press does have an effect, yes, definitely. And I've made documentaries and been on current news programs. There's one that you've got to get on in the UK, which is the Radio 4 morning program called Today, which is just a talk radio station. So that kind of stuff really, really helps. But that helps build your 3.5%. Yeah, and that 3.5, it's just such a magic number. I looked at her research. It's absolutely incredible. Every single time you've got this civil, you know, good quality, non-violent protest that involves constant feeding into the press, into the public, into the politicians. Once you hit that 3.5%, it's absolutely magic. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can I just add something to what you said? You said, what were you saying? You said, make it about, make sure you stay on point, make sure it's about the process, but always make it about the children. Always mention the children, yeah? We are doing this because of the children. We are doing this because it's in the best interest of the children. You know, that's, you've got to bring it back to that every time.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to pose a question. So we often hear a question from people who are just learning about homeschooling. They say, "Well, I could never homeschool my children. I don't have teachers training. I didn't go to university. How could I possibly do that?" Is it the same with lobbying? Do you need a special qualification to lobby? What would you say?
Balls. That's what I've got. You've just got to really, really, really have guts. That's what you've got to. And you've got to have the courage of your convictions. You've got to believe in what you're doing. And like you said, you know, you've got to be confident. You've got to be secure. You've not got to be nervous. So, you know, have a little practice. Start small. Talk to your local councillors, maybe your very local politicians. Talk to a few rooms of people. And your confidence will build as you go along.
Yeah, but I will provocative a little bit now. What I observe, it's not my opinion, because I totally agree that if I would be a lawyer or a teacher, politicians tend to ask me that, and if I say yes, that I'm not. But for example, right now the chair of my association, she is a mother doing homeschooling, but she is also a teacher in a school. So present herself as a teacher facilitates the communication. And what I want to bring with this is two things. First, pay attention for what, I'm sorry, Alison said, because the most important it is our confidence. But at the same way, the reality is they are in their reality we have to be aware that they have expectations. In my country, for example, they expect for us to have a degree, a university degree. If we don't say that we have, well, it is possible to defend, it is, but it's easier to
have the communication flowing if we present ourselves as a researcher, for example. If I say that, oh no, but I'm doing a research in human rights, for example, the tension, it's different. So I'm just getting the point for this is also a reality. So don't lose strength about this, but this is my reality. If we go there and I present the lawyer, it's easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have status, make some status, that's what you're saying. But if you don't have status yourself, then take somebody with you who does have status, and that will add weight to your argument.
All right, I'd like to, there's a question at the back. Erika has a question.
I think I'm searching for advice here. So we were talking about lobbying and speaking to politicians, but there are other settings where you might be having contact with politicians or important people, let's put it that way. Like, for example, talk shows, radio talk shows, TV talk shows. Now, what I would like to ask is this. How do you feel about going, or when you're invited to go to speak about home education, and maybe you're unsure about the setting, because I don't know if it's your experience, but when I am called to do something like this, I'm never really sure if it's going to be a favorable environment. Actually, I'm almost always sure it's not going to be a favorable environment. And at these roundtables, there's usually a politician, a teacher, maybe a principal, or, you know, usually they call these kind of figures to come up and talk. So I would like to know, what would you advise in these settings? My experience is that I go and I have to be very confident, and I have to expect the worst. I'm sorry to say. I have to be prepared to the comments that will come. Like during the pandemic, obviously there was a lot of talk about home education, and often the accusation was these are people doing it because they don't want to follow the rules, right? And I said, no, these are people that are finding out how difficult it is to study in school and be successful, and they're finding it wonderful to have their children around them. But obviously, my opinion wasn't as important, like you were stating, Sylvia, right now, because I was, you know, just a mom, right, doing it, I guess. So my question is, what would you advise to do in that setting, in that situation? Would you say, yes, go, and how then? Or maybe refuse, don't participate, it's too risky? Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing is find somebody who can give you a little bit of media training. Okay, a little bit of media training goes a very long way in being able to attack points in the right way. The second thing is realize you're only going to get 3 points across at most in any show, even if it's an hour long. Okay, don't give yourself a massive list of things to get over. Figure out what the most important things are. The third thing is those programs always have a researcher. You make damn sure you have an hour-long conversation with that researcher if you can, because that will give you a massive background to that program. They will have already had some prejudices, and they'll be putting the program together. So you get to the research, you talk to the research, you just say, I just want to make sure we've got some facts and figures right, or whatever excuse it is that you can come up with, and you talk to the researcher. And I find if you manage to talk to the researcher, the thing usually goes really, really well.
Thank you. I want to add something before I answer your question. Because in different environments, and again, without lying, without creating anything that it's not true, I really like to present myself only as a mother. And as homeschool mother, this is my role. So when I go to places, it seems like I'm answering a different thing. Let me just explain. I began by that because I want to make a statement with that. The statement is, I don't have to have a degree to educate my kids, period. So I really like to be presented as the mother. And then if I have more things, or have with me a teacher, a lawyer, even better, to open the communication, okay? About the question. Sorry, Erika. Great question. In my experience, as you said, we never know. So we already have, well, in the majority of the situations, we had good experiences because we always speak with the journalist before, by phone. And I say, I only go if you respect this, this, and this. For example, I refuse myself to talk about my kids' evaluations. For example, I don't want to talk about what are they doing now because I want to preserve their privacy because they are young adults. So I'm the mother. They are other human beings, for example. But I always put some points that, okay, I agree on going. I want to go. I really want to go. I will just say, but I don't want to talk about this, this, and this. And well, most of all, we have good experience, to be honest. The environment, at least in Portugal, is changing, so we don't have many experience of being attacked. It's more about curiosity. And curiosity, it's always about the same things. Socialization, evaluation, but I don't speak about that because I don't want to bring the conversation to that. But socialization, for example, I love to answer. So please, ask me, because it's a great opportunity to explain that our kids, yes, are socializing. Imagine. Once I had this awful experience, I'm just sharing a moment, with a big Portuguese TV. And I agreed to go there with numbers of conditions, and we signed a paper and everything. But in the morning that I was there with another mother, the journalist said to me, okay, there's here a psychologist also to be in the panel with you. And I said, I don't go to the program. And the program was already on the air, you know? And I said, I don't go. But then I decided, okay, if I don't go, they will announce that the homeschool mothers that didn't come. And I decided, okay. Then it was not a good experience. The interview went well, but they left the psychologist to the end. And I didn't have the opportunity to say nothing. And as expected, the psychologist knew nothing about homeschooling. So just an example, how to prepare myself for that. Sometimes I think we have to take the risk and, or, I don't know, yeah.
just one point on the mother thing. I no longer go in the media as a mother because I'm now chair of an organisation. Okay. So what I tend to do is I will take a mother with me. So I'll have somebody who will bring, if you will, that case study, and I'll make sure that she's very briefed and she understands and she knows she can say, I'm not answering that if necessary, but then I'm there as kind of like the expert. So we've got like a double-barreled approach.
Yeah. Just one more quickly thing. Now I go as a GHGX member, and it's a huge impact because now I'm saying, no, this is not a Portuguese thing, you know. We are not a group of Portuguese crazy people wanting to know something that comes from our dictator, because people are afraid of that sometimes there. The idea that, oh, okay, they want to do what a dictator it's crazy. But saying, no, this is a global movement. For politicians, it's huge. For journalists, either. Okay, so it's important to, yeah. Oh, so nice. Please keep me with. Sorry. I don't do that when I am on a political environment. So people say, no, I'm always with good behavior. But here I'm with this family, so I jump a little.
Okay, I will be really short. My husband says I always have too many questions. But just as a side note, I was thinking about Silvia, the circle you made about take care of yourself, and I was thinking about how many burnouts we had this month, and how many times our kids suffered because we had burnout, because we were struggled and we were battling for homeschooling, and so how it's important. It was just a reminder for myself how it's important to delegate, to find new people, to have a team, and so thank you for that. And both of you, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And sometimes just realizing that this is not about us, and what we have to do for a moment is realizing that, okay, I have to have a moment for myself, and then the defense of the cause will not stop if we stop for a little, but it will stop if we have a brain something. So I always remember that. And once Mike said to me, Sylvia, we want you here with good health. So go and rest, because you said that to me once, because I work sometimes at 1 a.m. in the morning,
And I was getting contact with Mike, and Mike realized, oh, in Portugal, you should be in bed, so go and sleep. So this is a good reminder, in my opinion. And just one more thing, because, for example, in Portugal, this first time in 2019, when the first regulation was become to be proposed, we made 3 nights without a sleep, the whole team of Mel, 3 nights, because if we didn't do that, we didn't have the paper on time to present. And at the end of these 3 nights, I was so exhausted that I decided, okay, now it's not about me. And let me know, it's about, someone said here, it's about believing in something much more special than we. So I believe in that also. So I do my work, and the rest is whatever, okay?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to reinforce some of the things, excellent things that I've heard here today. In my experience, there's 2 things that I'd like to share. One is the power of your voice. The power of your voice is families, because most politicians do not hear from regular people. They hear from paid lobbyists, they hear from interest groups, but they don't hear from regular people. And the power of your voice is crucial. We had a battle in our province years ago, and we were battling over one word. That was changing the word from registration to notification. And that was the only thing that we were able to actually change, but it was significant, and it's carried us for the years since then. But as we were negotiating with the Premier of the province inside the building and talking with a huge crowd outside the building, the Premier said to us that there is nothing that stirs fear in the heart of a politician more than the wrath of a mother. And I would just encourage you as mothers to stand up and to speak your heart, because it stirs fear.
Thank you.
Not the whole thing to train to be perfect. It's not the whole thing. If you sit for the children, my English is not so good. Yeah, if I sit to teach the children, yeah, and they ask me, why should I learn? What did I have to say? Yeah, what can I say? I can say, watch at the Bible. There is written, you have to learn. You have to praise God. But I can't sit. I am perfect. Yeah. You have to listen to me because of I am perfect. That's not real. It's no-go, yeah? That's why the mother is not the only thing. There must be 2. The husband is very important. The husband have to say, the children, that's my wife. I have chosen that wife, and that's why you have to listen. Because of I like her, yeah? And that's the reason, yeah? And there's no other way. And if you talk to the politicians, it's the same, yeah? You can't say we are perfect, but if the children say, my education was good, yeah? If the husband says, my wife is good, that is a real voice. Yeah.
Peter, just let me just give a word for all fathers, because it's true. Thank you for bringing that all the time. If I didn't have my lovely husband that is back there supporting me, if we were not a team, thank you, Paulo, and thank you, Tiago, if you are there. And this is for all parents, because we have to have a team. And if not, work what you have, but it's important to be aware of our role and be truthful with our role in our mission. It's just that. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Allison. I want to thank Sylvia, and also Tim, who's had to head out now. we're on time, which is great, and we'll be on time for our break. I just want to leave you with one last thought on this subject. You've been introduced to this subject, some of you for the very first time, although I think we can all see the very real importance of talking to our political leaders. And it's this. This is not where this learning on your part has to end. If you decide that you're going to be talking to your local politician or other politicians, your group is getting together and meeting to decide how are we going to do this, you do not have to do this alone. That's the whole point of GHEX. We're a network that can support one another. So I believe that you have the email addresses of most of the people here. You can reach out to our speakers, and they'll be happy to give you advice. You can reach out directly, sort of to headquarters, if you will, and we can put you in touch with somebody. Hopefully, somebody who can speak to you in your own language as well. And we're happy to give you advice. We're happy to walk through the process with you. You do not have to do this alone. So see this as a first small step in what could be, a great journey through your parliament, through your Congress, through your legislature, and towards a freer Europe. Let's be excited about that. So, all right. So, do you want to say anything about the break?
Yes, you can do it. We can do. Let me see. What about 20 minutes of break? Because we don't have some. Well, 15 minutes, okay, of break. Then we come back here for a more interactive workshop. Okay, so please come back and let's work together again.
Thank you. Whereabouts are you located? Are you in Marseille as well, or? No, okay. Oh, you're in Paris. Okay. Okay. Oh, wonderful. No, that's very helpful. And I will share this with Mike Don.
J'aurais dit on peut rester à 3 micros. Là, ils ont utilisé au maximum de 3 micros pendant 2 minutes. Hein. Attends, je sais pas c'est lequel. Si tu veux bloquer, c'est le 1. Tu l'as éteint? Tu l'as éteint? Non, j'ai bien fait. Ah, j'arrive pas à rester sérieux. Mais t'as bien raison.
We have seen what the poor parts of Caesarea